afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to RVN's television show, What the Why with Barbara Ann. As we turn one next month, I'm going to be phasing out the newer-ish shows. But whether you're seeing us for the first time or you've been watching us from the beginning, our show features conversations with diverse leaders from all walks of life about why they do what they do and how they figured it out. Maybe there's been times in your life where you felt stuck and wanted to get unstuck, or you're sick and tired of feeling sick and tired in your business, your career, your education, your relationships. Something that all of our guests have in common with you is they felt similarly at some point or another in their life, and they decided to change it. And today's guest is no exception to that. In fact, you've met her previously. Our guest is returning to us from Eustis, or Utah. I'm going to get that at some point. She's returning to us from Utah, Arkansas. We have the pleasure of having Tannur Ali, the founder and residential land steward for iLogic Sustainable Injuries and Solomon's Garden. She's the wearer of many hats, including poet, mother, facilitator, and she is the chief steward and coordinator of Solomon's Garden, which is a 5-acre plot of land nestled deep in the woods of rural Alabama, not Arkansas, to create space for the growth that is central to the mission of iLogic. Participants will spend, and have spent, and we're going to learn about how they did spend, the coming years developing models of sustainable multi-generational community building, which includes farming. To refresh your memory, if you saw our previous episode, iLogic stands for Institute for the Love of Genius in Community, which began as a community association in Albany, Georgia, founded in 2014 by Tannur and her mother, growing out of her desire to connect with community in useful ways. At first, they called it the Neighbors Initiative as a way to gain the interest of neighbors in their 215 homes in their community, but it grew to be so much more than that, which included cooking classes, gardening classes, organizing neighbors for community engagement, so forth and so on. They would eventually move from Tannur's home into another facility, which unfortunately, there was a fire in 2016. That resulted in The Gift in the Darkness, and Tannur pivoted and began a world schooling adventure with her 3 children. The tour, which she aptly named the Where is Home Project, became an 18-month boot camp to prepare for a new life of community service on the global scale. And that is what ultimately led her to Utah, Alabama, where she is joining us today. She's received so much recognition and praise for her transformative work. Just a few things include being featured in the 2017 UN Library in Geneva and at the Home for Humanity in Valromey, France. She won the 2015 iHeart Shiro Awards for the Arts, World Poetry Movement Best Poem of 2012, and so much more that you can learn about if you go back and watch our first episode so that you have more context. So I'm thrilled to have her back. When I said that she needed to come back, I meant it when we were wrapping up our very first episode, and here she is joining us in the new year for our follow-up episode. So without further ado, please welcome me in joining Tannur Ali. So yay! She's
Happy
back.
New Year, Barbara Ann.
Happy New Year to you too. And as much as we got a chance to talk last time, there's so much, you're so multifaceted, we didn't even get a chance to talk to you about everything. So
Right.
I know we've got some really exciting things to talk about, but really quick for those who don't know your background. Very, very briefly, could you tell people what you wanted to be when you grew up and how you got to where you are now?
Ooh. What I wanted to be when I grew up was a housewife. I think we talked about that before.
We
I
did.
had this whole vision in my mind of showing up right on time with a cup of coffee for my husband first thing in the morning. And I also very, very, very much wanted to work with horses and to be an equestrian. So that was kind of the beginning for me. And I think we got to talk a little bit about how that has shifted and grown over the years. And I'm having coffee for myself these mornings lately.
Which is awesome. And
Yeah.
and your love of horses started in Philadelphia. You ended up in Georgia. You traveled the world, and so that I don't upset the Alabamians that are watching, you landed in Utah, Alabama, not Arkansas, not Utah, the state. And you're doing amazing things around sustainability and farming, about things which you are extremely passionate about, and which so many let me rephrase that, more and more Black and brown people are realizing that this is a huge part of our future. So
Absolutely.
when we last spoke, you were getting ready to launch some new things around sustainable housing, and we're going to talk about that. I want to talk to you about your poetry. I want to talk to you about everything. But let's talk about your cohort. You recently ran a cohort. So tell us what you've been doing since our last episode.
Freezing. Oh,
Okay,
Barbara,
that's honest. This is an honest, authentic show. That's an honest, authentic answer.
I mean, let the truth be told. This was a really exciting holiday season for us. We started our homestead incubation program, which has been in kind of beta testing mode for the last 2 or 3 years, with individual participants coming on the land for anywhere from a few days to a few months to experience life on the land, take part in the homestead, things like that. And about a year ago, my partner and I decided we need to have folks here in groups. We need to do it in the model of cohorts so that we can practice having community accountability, community engagement, and really start to develop the models by which we want to develop truly sustainable, holistic community. And so our first cohort came in for a training called About This Life. And it was seriously for people who are about this life. It's a 2-week intensive training to learn how to build a temporary home site on raw land. There are folks out here who are, especially since COVID, have been just kind of jumping out there and purchasing land, right? But without any real understanding of what it takes to build the infrastructure. And so we wanted to give folks an opportunity to be on the land, to learn what it is to develop a relationship with the land and relationships within the community to be able to actually build. And so we discussed everything from how to read a deed to how to put in electrical infrastructure, to knowing what an easement is, to putting up these 4-season bell tents, clearing raw land, all sorts of things. It was intense. And we had, I have to say, the perfect group of people for the first cohort. I mean, I've been here on the land for about 5 years now, a little over 5 years. And this was the first time in my experience here in Alabama for the weather dropping below zero. We had a good, serious 4 days with participants here on the land, staying in these bell tents, using wood stoves in -4 degrees. All the pipes froze, the water in the water bottles froze, and we had to come together and figure it out. And I think it was such a wonderful opportunity for the group to be able to gain the cohesion that we needed to have the teamwork to get through that experience. And when we did, we ended up closing out the experience in 73-degree sunny weather.
Wow.
So it was really a powerful opportunity for all of us, for the facilitators and the participants, to really get an understanding of what it means when we say we are about this life.
That is fantastic. So now that you've had your official, like a beyond beta test launch, how do you envision this program moving forward?
Well, the vision is that on this particular land at Solomon's Garden, I spent about the first year just listening to the land, learning to read the land and seeing what was growing, how things were moving, what animals are here, and developing my own rhythm and moving on the land. So that's a lot of what we teach in the course of teaching folks about stewardship. Is that stewardship is really effective management of resources and a knowledge and conscientious way of operating around the land as a sovereign entity. Recognizing that we have to serve the land in order to be served by the land. And so the vision is to create opportunities for folks to come out and learn the skills that they need to be effective stewards on land that they will acquire. And in that process, to develop the infrastructure here for those training classes. So for instance, we cleared this area of the land where we put this 20-foot bell tent that's sitting behind me, which is a really fantastic space for holding classes and workshops and circle time and all sorts of things like that during workshops. And then the group was able to then go to another part of the land and start from scratch. We built a 24-foot by 24-foot deck that this tent will eventually be moved over to, where we'll host more programs and classes for the community. The idea is to start off from the very basic with a cohort of folks who are coming in brand new to all of it. I mean, learning things like how to read a tape measure, okay? So coming in really green, really brand new, and then learning step by step the skills that it takes. And as we learn those skills, to build more infrastructure so that this cohort was actually our first founding legacy cohort. And a legacy cohort will be a group of folks who come out to the land and leave a legacy for the folks who come behind them. So the legacy for this particular group was that deck where trainings and classes and artistic programs will take place. The next group will have a legacy of whether it's building a bathroom or putting in permaculture gardens to treat the water that's going to be coming through the showers and things like that. So the idea is to consistently build infrastructure on the land while teaching folks how to do that on their land and giving them an opportunity to not just build it, but to experience the completed project so that they really have a taste and a feel for the work in their bones when they go out to their own land.
This is so phenomenal. I mean, it really is. I mean, talk about true sustainability. How did you figure out, I mean, yes, it's one thing to be passionate about farming and equestrian and sustainability. How did you figure out that working with others and teaching them and mentoring them in these types of endeavors was your why?
All of it is centered around, truth be told, we're authentic on this show, so I'm going to tell the whole truth.
Yep.
The whole truth is I built a training program that I was looking for.
Okay.
I couldn't find it anywhere. I wanted to surround myself with elder farmers and land stewards, with mentors who knew things like building and construction and plumbing and mechanics and all these sorts of things, animal husbandry and the works. And I haven't been able to find it. I have been incredibly disappointed at the organizations that are out here that claim to offer technical assistance, right, for new and beginning farmers and land stewards that don't actually do that. And I myself have had some very difficult experiences here on the land, finding folks who presented themselves as folks who would come out to teach and guide me in my process, and who actually were seeking ways to take advantage. Lots of different ways of taking advantage. And it really settled my mind and centered my heart around making sure that other folks, other young first generation Black land stewards do not have to go through the same thing. I want us to be able to have safe places to learn, safe places to build, and safe communities to do that work in.
Wow. And thank you so much for that. And here we are again. It's already time to take our break. But please come back after our brief commercial break with more with Tannur She Writes Ali. We're going to touch a little bit on that She Writes part, on what the why. Authentic, right? On What the Why with Barbara Ann. Welcome back to What the Why with Barbara Ann and today's amazing special and returning guest, Tannur She Writes Ali. And she just shared with you her why for what she does in terms of sustainable living and farming and things like that. There's so many other facets to her. I definitely want to make sure we get to them in this episode. Not that we wouldn't be willing to have her back a third time. She writes. So we're going to pivot for a second. Because in addition to all of this amazing work you're doing in creating legacy sustainable housing and opportunities and land stewardship and building wealth and teaching and not taking advantage of people, and I could go on and on and on with the descriptives, you're an award-winning poet. And there's a connection there. I mean, and so what inspired you to become a poet?
I cannot not write.
Okay.
It's been in me for a very long time. I think I wrote my first poem at 8 years old.
Wow.
And my stepdad, El Hadan, who came into my life and really helped to shape my love of agriculture, my love of wild land, my love of time in the woods, also helped to shape my writing.
Okay.
I remember one day, I think I was 11 or 12 years old, and he said something, and I snapped back at him real fast. And he said, "You know what? You have so much to say. I'm going out of town for a few days. When I get back, I want you to have 3 raps written."
Ah.
And I said, I don't write raps. And he said, "You do now. You have so much to say. Put it on paper." And I have not stopped writing since.
That's awesome. What's fantastic is, not a lot of young women, especially in my age group, but even in others, were really truly encouraged to express through poetry or rap, because really poetry is spoken word, and rap is spoken word. It is a form of expression, and the fact that you had a stepfather that encouraged you to be vulnerable and speak your mind and speak your truth in that format is really awesome. And
definitely, it was really powerful. And then to back that up, I remember not too long after that, after I had kind of a notebook full of poems, my mom took me one day, said, "We're going to go out." And we went to the October Art Gallery, to panoramic poetry, and it was my first time hearing spoken word and being in a room full of poets. And I remember sitting there and being in awe, and the host got up on the stage and called my name.
Aww.
And I looked at my mom, and she reached into her purse and pulled out my notebook, and I felt like I belonged.
Wow.
I shared my poetry and fell in love with the stage, fell in love with the poets and the whole environment and the whole possibility that I could have something to say and that it would resonate and matter to other folks. It was really, really life-changing.
Wow. Yeah, and you had previously shared your mom was one of your biggest supporters and inspirations for the things that you do. If I can indulge our audience, do you have a piece that you would like to read for us?
Absolutely, absolutely.
I think they would really enjoy it. So Ms. Tannur, the floor is yours. Please share.
I got unplugged and found myself plugged in. Came unhinged and bowed down in submission. I'm not the seer of my mission, just a believer in greater power. Believer in a notion that love will keep on growing, even if it's planted in concrete ideology. Even if it's never had a guide to send it sifting through reality, love is my reality. And you are as sparks to my flame, the ignition, drenched in heaven-sent capacities to help me know my purpose. I'm worth it. Finally, I'm perfect, eternally, and not in egotistical sense. An extraterrestrial admission that I have seen God surviving, thriving inside all of us, sending synapse between personas so all of our actions are of the same thoughts. We all got caught in this morning inspiration. It rained. And once we got that trust in things unseen, faith is but a common trust between the walls of all of this, and thus we remain unplugged, but plugged into higher missions, unhinged, bowed down in submission, reflecting heavenly capacities all over this thing. And what would you call it? What visions have called you to listen? Called you to consensus with the rest of us who know the differences between us are merely heaven's intentions for our gods to know their own purpose. We are but a celestial collective of inherent ambitions to evolve. I believe in things unseen because I have been blinded by a cause, deafened by hectic rhetoric, cast down by the lowest of corrosive spirits, and risen again like a phoenix. Found myself in tune with vibration, seen glory between silver linings, and realized I am not alone here. You too are on the path, and we are innumerable. We're just so in tune, you know? If it seems like we've been guided, it's only because we have. If it seems like I'm too hyped, it's only because I am. This is not the ebb, it's the flow. This is but the time to let go. Curvy currents tend to carry current limits off with ocean mystics and ultraviolet visions of little lights in dark places. You just need a little heart to start ignition, a little spark to start the engine. You gotta travel kind of far outside your comfort zone to find where you belong. And when you get here, I'll be waiting, making available the space to come unplugged and find your mission, come unhinged and fling progression like the open gates of heaven. This is just the beginning. Thank you so much for letting me share.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for that. Recently I feel like I'm finding increasingly speechless after some of the things that our guests have shared. And I have to tell you that what you just said, your story, that's why I do what I do. That was phenomenal. I mean, talk about phenomenally phenomenal woman. Another favorite poet of mine. But yeah, that was incredible. I don't have any other words for it. I'm not even sure how to move on. I'm so moved by that. What's interesting, I will say, is the courage that it takes to put yourself out there. And you do it. And there are so many people out there that are interested in the other things you do as well. I don't mean in any way to diminish that, because it's phenomenal, life-changing work. But there are people that have talent such as yours that are maybe afraid to share. What advice can you offer to them to encourage them to overcome whatever fears they may have, and speak their truth in their voice?
What comes to me right away is to encourage folks to listen to the words that come through them. to view the art that comes through them. A lot of times, other folks resonate with your art because of their own experience, right? But if we give ourselves an opportunity to be the witness, the spectator, the audience member of the brilliance that we are gifted with, then a lot of times we have an opportunity to recognize it as that. And then also realize that we have a responsibility to share it. It comes through us because it can only be shared by us. And I believe that.
Amen. I mean, that really is, for those who don't know, amen actually means so be it. And amen. And we're at time. And that is the perfect. God and the universe meant for us to end on that note.
I enjoyed speaking with you, Barbara Ann. Thank you so much.
Many times over. The pleasure is definitely mine and ours. And I'm sure that there are people watching right now or going to watch us on demand that are going to be truly inspired by your story. And again, there's still other things that Tannur does, such as going out to corporations and doing motivational speaking and planning and engagement and bringing people to her and going to them. So what is the best way for people to find you and follow up with you on the wide range of things that you offer?
The best way is through the website, officialilogic.org. You can get our contact information and social media and updates on what we have going on and programs that we're offering. One of our biggest things is that the work that we're doing on the land is specifically designed to combat the epidemic of Black land loss in the United States. And so our land stewardship programs are specifically geared to first generation Black land stewards who want to learn how to build sustainable, long lasting generational relationships with the land. But we have so much more that we offer beyond that scope. And so I encourage folks to either check out our Instagram, ilogic_Solomon's Garden, or to visit the website and send in a little contact form and say hey to me.
Awesome. Thank you again, Tannur, so much for taking the time to come back and serve as a guest a second time on our show. And we will definitely bring you back again at some point to hear even more about some of the things that you're doing. As for coming up in the near future, we are officially in 2023. For some of us, that we're really glad about that. And we've got some other exciting guests lined up for you. A slight pivot. Next week, we're going to have as our guest Lynn Ozer. Lynn is the president of Multifunding LLC. She's a nationally known award-winning government guaranteed loan expert and entrepreneurial trainer. Whenever they're signing something about small business at the White House, she's almost inevitably in the picture behind the signer. In addition to her, we're going to have Belle Walker, who is the founder and lead consultant of Bellevue Consulting, who helps companies optimize their team, along with Meredith Bell, who you'll hear more about, and Joanne Morton, who you will hear about more in the coming weeks too. Please believe me when I tell you don't want to miss out what any of our guests have to say about their journeys. As a reminder, What the Why airs and will continue to air as we continue into our second season starting in February on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Time and Monday afternoons at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We're also available on demand through RVN Television and Roku and coming soon to new platforms in the 2023 year. And please remember, whether you're looking to make changes in your life or career, whether big or small, please join us again for more inspirational, informative, and amazing guests like Tannur, who saw the possibilities, wanted to make changes, and overcame whatever obstacles or fears, real perceived or otherwise, in their paths to find their purpose and to live it.